Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Mike Beer with producer Bobby helping us out. We preview a Grade 2 race out at Santa Anita on Saturday. It's the Grade 2 Twilight Derby. We'd always love to hear from you in the comments section. Leave any comments below and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's take a look at the field for this one. Not a big field, Mike. And then to the outside, test score, pretty classy. This horse has 10 starts, 8 of them, top 3 finishes with a 4th and a 5th. A grade 1 winner in the Belmont Derby, and just a horse that always shows up and fires a really solid effort.
Yeah, I think he's one of the better 3-year-old turf horses we have around this year, Gino. And maybe even more important than that, they ship him out here into a spot that just didn't get a big field here, and his overall form kind of makes him a standout at this point.
Yep. As we move to the pace projector, this is where you could maybe get an upset or where things could get a little tricky because it looks like you have one speed horse here, the one, September 64, who was a runoff speed last time out. Then the rest of the field, it's really interesting to see where they could be jockeying for position, right? A horse like the 3, Saipia, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that horse was a little more forward than it has on the pace projector, right? Because that's the type of
Yeah.
horse who could maybe get a trip, maybe get the jump on test score. I feel like in a small field like this where there's not a lot of pace, that's where sometimes some crazy things can happen.
It'll be interesting to see how they sort themselves out. I mean, I think it's pretty clear, unless the connections just decide to totally change things up. It's pretty clear that the one is making the early lead in here. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out behind that horse because test score, even though he's got a big, strong closing kick and he stays a distance, he is pretty handy too.
Yeah.
So he
And they have the
shouldn't be
blinkers.
compromised by pace. I think I'm glad you brought up Scipio the 3 because one of the things I liked about him earlier this year, Gino, is that he found handy earlier in his career. He had no speed, then he found real handy speed, and I think it made a big difference. I think it really improved his form, and so it'll be interesting to see how they play it here and see how close he can get to this pace.
Let's meet the field for the Grade 2 Twilight Derby. $200,000 up for grabs. This one's going to go as race number 5 on Saturday at Santa Anita, closing weekend over there. We start things out with September 64, who won going 5 furlongs on the turf on August 14th. And coming off of that race, he was actually favored when he stepped up and he stretched out in his next start against First Level Allowance Company, and he went long. I mean, he opened up early on the field, Mike, but he just stopped. He was like a runoff in that race. They couldn't really slow him down early on. He actually did get run down by Maz in here, who's, he'll have to face again. What do you think about September 64 coming off of that effort?
I just don't see him wiring this field yet. I understand that he looks like lone speed, but just being lone speed in the race is kind of meaningless unless you're good enough to win. And based on what I've seen from this horse, I don't think he's good enough to win.
Now, maybe the second start going long, he can be a little bit
Yeah.
better, but he's just going to have to really have a form reversal off of that last effort where he just stopped early and they weren't able to relax him. Namaron comes off of a 3rd place finish over at Kentucky Downs, and it's a pretty good effort, Mike. A lot of the horses that he faced in that race are running in the Bryan Station at Keeneland this weekend. You'll see horses like Plensa, Giacosa, I think Simulates, one who comes out of some of those races at Kentucky. So second start in North America now, second start off a short little break. This is a Group 3 winner. You get a very nice turf rider, Hector Barrios, up. I mean, a lot of positives in here. I wonder what kind of a price he's going to be, but feels like class-wise, it's probably a good spot for him.
Yeah, he probably fits okay here. We'll look at the Kentucky Downs race here. The Gunner, this is a big purse. You mentioned it's a good field too. I thought overall, this was a really good trip for this horse because this pace was fast.
Yeah.
And you're going to see when they switch the camera angle here in a minute, he is going to wind up sort of in tight between horses really briefly. Maybe it cost him. I don't know. I thought he was already beat at that point, so I'm not giving him any extra credit for that. But he runs fine in here. He does have tactical speed, not only based on this race where he got outrun a little bit by a fast pace, but his races over in Germany. I don't know if you bothered to watch any of them, but he was a sort of a forwardly placed horse in those races. So I think he's tactical. I think he can get the right trip in this race and maybe do better. But he's 2-1 on the morning line. That did nothing for me if that's how they bet this race.
Now, the key is if you're trying to beat test score in here, you have to have an angle on why, because on paper, he looks like he's the class of the field.
Right.
And for you, you're hoping that Scipio might be able to get the jump on him. You were talking about some of those races earlier on, maybe where he showed more speed and he was a little bit in the race more. That's the kind of way you have to look at him. I don't know if a horse like Namaron is going to get the jump on test score, but Scipio might, the 3 who you like a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting again to see what kind of trip he pulls. Because I'm not going to really be able to, I think, defend his 2 most recent races. He just didn't really run that well either time, especially the last one. They just sort of went evenly in there over this distance. So because of those two performances, I'm kind of glad that Baltus gave this horse a little time and sort of freshened him up a little bit, because it was, sort of a long series of races there from last August right through to the end of May this year. It's just one race after another for this horse. So maybe he just, sort of wore himself out and needed a break. As we already talked about, Gino, I feel like he found tactical speed. I think it really led to improvement earlier this year. And as you were talking about, can anybody get to test score? This horse, when he ran against test score at Keeneland in April, he might have run almost as well as test score did that day. He had a lot of trouble early in that race, lost position, had to alter course in the stretch, and then he finished really well in that race for a second. I thought that was a good performance. And if he can get back to something like that, maybe he can pull off a little upset here.
And if he's looking at test score as the main rival and he's looking at that race and saying, okay, we were close that day, but can we do something a little bit differently? Let's see if we can get in front of him and maybe we can get the jump on him. And maybe that's a way where we can hold him off. So we'll see with Scipio as we move to Maz, the French bred runner. And the major concern with this guy, Mike, is that he just does not have early speed at all. And this is a small field. We can watch his win. It was visually impressive. Came from way off it, but it was chasing that runoff leader. It was a race that just set up a little bit better on paper with that early speed. Small field here. Is he going to get the same trip with this horse running off? Maybe, but I think there's two or three others who can close better than him in here.
Exactly. That was my problem with him. He's just not the best closer in this race. And listen, I won't take anything away from him there. He got the right trip and he looked good winning that race. But even that performance, to me, if he just runs it back here, it's not going to be good enough to beat these horses. So we'll just see if he can improve enough. I guess if you wanted to say that you like him, he's headed the right way and you like him, he has a good price.
Test score, we'll add the blinkers, and he's just been really solid throughout his entire career. It's tough to knock anything he's done. He was fourth in a race that came going too far. I think it was an easy toss, and then everything else in his career is just really soft. It was really solid. This is a softer spot. And I mean, if you look at the top view from any of his last few races, they'd be really tough in a spot like this. He was in a photo for third last time out. He's just not going to be a bettable price or anything fun to bet, but really good spot for him.
Yeah, he's just a really good. I'm a big fan. This horse is really good. The other thing he has going for him too, not only is he maybe just the best horse, but it's 9 furlongs, man. I look at everybody else in this. The 9 furlongs is great for test score. I don't know how great it is for anybody else in here. I don't know if you have anything to add to this, Gino. The one thing that bothers me a little bit about him, just considering how good he's been, blinkers going on here. I'm not a big fan of equipment changes ever, especially with a horse like him. That bothers me a little bit, but he's way the horse to beat.
Yep. As we move to selections in here, I wish I could be more creative. I just thought test score was a real standout. But Mike, you made some really nice cases for Scipio the more and more that we talked. And as you saw, this horse could be competitive with test score and didn't even really get a good trip in that Transylvania. So smaller field, maybe a little bit less trouble. They could be separated by not a whole lot and you get much more value on Scipio.
That's ultimately why I took him. And it does feel like they're going to probably go a little bit overboard on test score here. And it might open this race up to Scipio being at least a halfway decent price. If he's around that 9-2, 4-1, I wouldn't take anything less than 4-1 on him. But if he's around that price in here, I'm going to take a small shot.
Mike's getting a little more creative with 3-5-2. I'm going to be chalking out with test score 5-2-4-1. Best of luck, whoever you play, however you play them.